Welcome to Flip the Cap, the insurance industry's premier podcast. I'm your host, Kathryn Smith, and I can't wait to pop the top on all things insurance with you today, sharing important industry trends, legislative changes, coverage comparisons, and talking about very specialized industry content. I'm so excited to have Mark Maher, president of Jencap, joining me today as my special guest. Under his leadership, Mark works with the management team at Jencap to develop strategic plans, drive overall growth initiatives, manage our carrier and broker relationships, and he works with our affiliate company leaders to achieve an effective cross-selling practice. Prior to serving as president of Jencap, he was our chief operating officer at Jencap and also president of its affiliate company, NIF Group, where he served for over 30 years. I'll spare you all the various additional insurance roles that he had prior to that, but having been in the insurance industry for almost 41 years, he's a wealth of knowledge, and we're absolutely thrilled to have him join us today. So thank you for being here, Mark. We appreciate it. Without further ado, let's pop the top and get into it. Even for us, it's a little earlier. We would be drinking.
No beer, Perrier has to be.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Next time. So I want to start with a couple of getting to know you questions, understanding the man behind the legendary Mark Maher. So let's start with, what is something that our audience may not know about you?
You know, I love to work out. I do it pretty religiously every single day, and it probably comes from a sports background. I played rugby for, 20 some odd years at in a men's league, kind of part of USA Rugby. Retired when I was 48, playing rugby, which is a long time to play that game. But my body tells me that every single day. You know, we got to a very high level, and it was time to retire. But I've kind of continued to stay in the sports. I'm the chairman of the New York Athletic Club Boxing Club, in charge of all their boxing programs and the boxing shows that they put on and the competitive events that we have there. So I've stayed involved in sports, and you know.
Are you on the sidelines with boxing or in the ring?
Well, I mean, listen, I'll get in and spar occasionally with some people that are not too dangerous. I mean, that's a criteria.
That you vetted and know are safe.
You know, when you're 62, you try and kind of pick and choose your opponents, which is part of, you know, what I'm able to do. So, but yeah, so I practice, you know, I train in the boxing room, but my job there predominantly is kind of putting on the shows, putting together a team, and trying to eventually get an Olympian that represents the New York Athletic Club. Cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
As a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, that's funny. I when, you know, and again, having the boxing background, originally my goal was to go into Marine Corps and try and get on the boxing team at the Marine Corps, to kind of fight at a high level there. And my father kind of thought, you know, you're really not that good at boxing, so maybe you should go into insurance. So we had this kind of dialogue on and off, and he was in the insurance business. And, you know, I always saw how well he did and the friends he had in the business and the fun he had in the business. And I knew it was probably inherently pretty good business. Didn't know that much about it, but kind of changed gears and, you know, went from kind of doing the military thing into insurance, and kind of went to the College of Insurance and did, you know, work-study program. And
you're one of the few that did this on purpose.
Yeah.
So many of the people we talked to in our industry fell into it, or it was a backup plan, or, well, I needed to make money somehow.
It's funny, you know, I think it always helps when you have a family member in the business. Like, we've even been successful about bringing young people on that have family members in the business, because they already have an association with it. They see somebody who's been successful. They see that they have fun. They see they have friends inside and outside of the industry, you know, particularly inside of the industry. So they know that it's a social business. And so I recognize that, I think, as a, you know, young man growing up. And so it became kind of natural for me. So it was a little bit of an advantage having my father being in the business.
Right. So you've obviously dedicated your career to the insurance industry. If you could travel back in time and tell your post-college graduate self one piece of advice, Now that you have experienced what you have in this industry, what would that piece of advice be?
I would think that, and I would tell anybody, we have people at Jencap coming into training and we're recruiting people and so on and so forth. I would say the same thing to myself as a young person or to somebody else coming into business, and I'd say learn the entirety, the holistic business. So understand what you do, because you might be a specialist within a specialist, but also understand the broader aspects of the business and kind of how it all plays with each other. So it would be reinsurance, whether it be surplus lines, whether it be kind of more standard market business, and kind of how the market plays off each other. I think it's very important to have that kind of well-rounded background.
So let's pivot a little bit to talk about the insurance marketplace as it is today. You've had a front row seat of looking at this industry and being, participating in it for a few years. What's something that you're seeing happening in the evolution of the insurance industry that is surprising you, that is potentially unexpected than what you would think would be happening at this point?
Yeah. Well, the industry's at, in a time of truly rapid change. And historically, it's not been that way. I mean, for the years that I grew up, things changed very slowly in our business. We were slow to the data. We were slow to a lot of other things in adapting change. And now, today, look at all the M&A that's going on, all the data collection, all the different things that are happening that are really changing this business. I think some of those things, the carriers understanding their books of business much better has given us an opportunity to have a much more level marketplace. I mean, this marketplace has been pretty hard now for the last few years, and usually it was a 2 or 3 year cycle historically, where you would have a good marketplace. And I think there's a lot of underwriting discipline given all the data that carriers now have. So we've seen a lot of change in that way, and the industry's changing again extremely rapidly, as fast as I've ever witnessed. Going back to the M&A side, there was always mergers and acquisitions in our business, but never at this kind of pace. I think this year through August, I think I read somewhere there was 333 acquisitions, was 20% drop from last year, but last year was a record year. And
in the retail agency space?
In the retail space. And a lot of people were trying to get deals done by the fourth quarter because they thought there was going to be a change tax-wise and it was beneficial to get deals done. So that activity level last quarter was up very high. So it's, even though we're down in terms of M&A activity, it's still a very active year. So we're seeing a lot of change. It's happening very rapidly, and the industry is extremely resilient. Always has through, whether it be economic crises, recession, slowdowns, which looks like is on the horizon now. It's been extremely resilient and a great place to land.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest challenge? I know that's a hard one. There's several challenges, but what would be something that's top of mind for you that's causing a challenge in the insurance industry right now?
If you look at from a carrier perspective, they've got nuclear awards, social inflation, all the buzzwords that go around in the industry. They've got cats when they never had cats before. If they're not, they're convective storms. I don't know if you call a cat a convective storm. There were places in the country, in fact, we had dinner last night, we talked about it with one of our property colleagues, in the country where you could write business where you never thought you'd have a cat in the middle of the country. You never thought you'd get affected by those things. And now that's all changed, right? The weather patterns have changed. Who knows, I'm not smart enough to tell you why that has happened, but and that has truly affected our industry and the way we underwrite things. So you've got pressure, from an underwriting perspective on a lot of different aspects of the business, the casualty business, the property business. We look at professional liability. We're writing things like cyber, which every day you read about hacks and ransomware and everything else. And, how these hackers are so good at getting into systems and disrupting businesses, and the demands that's put on the insurance business, and frankly, the way it's pushed prices and terms and conditions way north too, which also goes to directors and officers and things of that nature. So, so there's a lot of pressure on insurance companies to kind of really be disciplined and really kind of so they're driving underwriting profit back for their shareholders. So it's a challenge for them to kind of keep up with it.
What's your perspective on the aging workforce that the insurance industry has and this war on talent that we're dealing with on a daily basis? And I know you are, particularly in your role at Jencap.
Yeah, I mean, you read a lot of articles about it. I think they're in C-suites and even second-level management. You've got people that are, getting, or particularly, or possibly at the age of retirement. I think some people, if they're enjoying their career, they will stay on and create, hopefully an element or a level of management to come underneath them. But there's definitely a significant need for talent, to come into this business because of, I think, the graying of the industry as a whole. And I think it's going to continue to create big gaps in both, talent levels and service and things of that nature. I mean, WSIA last year, we met with, probably 20 different companies, and I don't think there was one that said they didn't need double digits, employees they're out to hire. I was talking to Markel executives the other day, and they had a class, their largest class, trainees of like 35, I think, was in the class. So people are recognizing this, and they're trying to go out and fulfill those needs, but there's a lot of competition because everybody's in the same boat.
Right. And Jencap's launching some really exciting training and development programs specifically for college students, but also college graduates by way of internship programs and also, postgraduate introduction programs. So what we can do at the end of this podcast is we can link that for some of our viewers if they want to learn more or have someone that they think of that might be interested in getting into the insurance industry.
Yes,
Jencap has some really exciting resources to set that up too.
Absolutely. We're super excited about that. We want to, bring people into the business and show them what a great business this can be and what a career opportunity it presents. So if you're, at a risk management program, which is a lot of the recruiting we're going to be doing, I think you have a leg up. You kind of understand what the business is about, and we hope to bring on some really smart young people in the next couple of years.
So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have Mark flip the cap. You don't totally know what's coming, but we have all of our guests. It's a competition, and you're very competitive. And our first guest, Kanan Crouch, was extremely competitive, so I really hope you beat him.
I do too. I'll never hear the end of it.
But I'll have you, when we come back from the break, see how many times it'll take you to flip a bottle cap into a cup. Kanan, it took him 6 tries, so get in a good headspace. That's the score to beat, and we'll be right back.
Focused.
Flip the Cap is brought to you by Jencap. Jencap is one of the largest wholesale intermediaries in the United States, with expertise in wholesale brokerage, binding authority, and program management. Jencap has specialized divisions and affiliate companies that provide niche expertise, unparalleled market access, and nationwide influence. Encompassing expertise from every corner of the industry, Jencap is the ultimate award-winning insurance family. Put Jencap to work for you.
We're back, and you're listening to Flip the Cap, the premier insurance industries podcast where trending topics are always on tap. I'm here with our special guest, Mark Maher, president of Jencap. And I'm really sorry, Mark, but I'm putting you in the hot seat now. We have all of our special guests play a game. We're all a very competitive bunch. As you'll see on the leaderboard here, we had our managing director and head of the environmental division for Jencap, Kanan Crouch, play this game last month. And no pressure, but it took him 6 tries to flip the cap in the cup. So this is for you.
All right.
The only rule is you just can't have your hand past the table. So without further ado, it's time for you to flip the cap.
It's like throwing the first baseball out of the opening,
just channel your
day, right?
your inner college drinking games.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Ah! You got this. Production can speed up the reel.
Right.
High five. Good job. For now, Kanan still gets to hold his title, and let's get back into talking about some of the exciting things happening at Jencap. Welcome back to Flip the Cap with Mark Maher. Mark, we're thrilled that Business Insurance just released their E&S market report and ranked Jencap the 5th largest property and casualty wholesaler, citing 29% year-over-year premium increase from 2020 to 2021. And I know it's even more if you looked at more recent data, but what do you attribute Jencap's rapid growth trajectory and success to date to?
Yeah, we've had a robust and really good acquisition strategy from kind of day one. That's how we started the business, and we've acquired 18 businesses from 2016 to today, and probably at least 2 others that are probably going to close by year end. So acquisition is definitely a big piece of the strategy. But as we've acquired, we've also been able to get some really, really good, significant teams in various specialties. We have a very strong casualty team in the Northeast and West Coast. We have a environmental team that is very strong at what they do: professional liability, workers' comp, personal lines, property. We started off with just a middle market presence. We now recruited one of the top national property brokers around the country who's got us into that space. So we've been able to develop all these specialties and bring these things on, which basically is very good for our client base, right? So if one acquisition didn't have that expertise years ago during their, before they were acquired by Jencap, they have access to it now. We can provide that access to that same client base. So our clients are getting a lot more out of Jencap coming together and out of the acquisition strategy and all the significant wealth of experience and specialties that we can bring to the table.
I think it's interesting to remind people that 6 years ago, Jencap was just a couple of visionary leaders sitting around, and this was their dream. Yeah. And in such a short period of time, we're closing in on $2.5 billion in premium. That's a rapid growth trajectory.
Yeah.
That's exceptionally impressive.
Yeah.
And a lot of hard work.
It has been, and we've been very fortunate. This is all the assets in any clearly insurance business is the people.
Right.
And we've been able to acquire really, really good people kind of across the board, and people that are all, got on board for the right reasons and stayed on board for the right reasons. So everybody kind of knew what the mission was. There was no, when you talked to Jencap about being sold, and John Jennings was very kind of upfront about what it was going to be like. It was going to be a lot of work, but we were here to grow a good size wholesaler that was going to meet the needs of the marketplace. And I think, to a great degree, we've done that. There's more work to do.
The slide behind us is interesting to show.
Excuse me.
On the left, you see from a branding perspective, all of the various companies that have been acquired to date by Jencap, and we've made a very concerted effort at the enterprise level to make sure that there's brand consistency in the marketplace, and that our retail partners, our carrier partners, everyone understands how Jencap is connected to not just the companies that have been rebranded, but the Minicos and the Quakers and the Trevettis and some of the other companies that have their own company name and brand, but they're part of Jencap, and visually we can represent ourselves as one in the marketplace. But we're still having to connect those dots with our retailers sometimes of, oh wait, I spoke to Quaker. Quaker's Jencap? Jencap's Quaker?
Right. You're absolutely right. And I think that was where the challenge was. The carriers kind of caught on pretty quickly, who Jencap. They had to, right? They needed to know who their clients were, what that client looked like in the aggregate. So the carriers kind of had a better grip on this early on. It was us, you, getting the messaging out. Who is Jencap today? And what is Jencap comprised of? And if I didn't do business with Risk Innovations, for example, what did Risk Innovations do? I'm not a client of Risk Innovations. I was a client of NIF. What does Risk? Oh, they do workers' comp. Now I have workers' comp business I can give to people that I knew at NIF that can get workers' comp done for me, right? Because we have a specialty team down there. So it's been, I think that message kind of continues to get out, and I think we've done, from a marketing perspective, we've done a really good job in terms of communicating that. But there's always work to do.
Well, and the cross-sell capabilities that exist within the ecosystem of Jencap are endless.
Yes.
Like you said, if you're a retail partner that you were only going to X wholesaler for, this carrier access or this specialization, now you're able to access the full power of the Jencap platform, which is 27 exclusive programs. There's 250 plus wholesale brokerage markets and 50 plus foreign and domestic binding authority markets. So, we truly can be a specialized and industry-leading one-stop shop for our customers, which, where we both said it feels nice to know that the value proposition that we're constantly selling on a daily basis is one that we're so proud of, and we know we can truly stand behind and just be so confident in our ability. The E&S marketplace continues to expand even as rate hikes are beginning to stabilize. What does that mean for the insurance industry? And then also, what does that mean for Jencap in terms of our opportunity?
It's a good question. I think, there's been some probably rate fatigue in the casualty side, excess casualty. There's been a little bit more expansion of some limits and things like that. We have a well-rounded business, so we see different places. Some softer comp has historically been soft over the past few years, and we're hoping that that's going to turn around in a few years. We're going to see some shifts. Property is still very, very hard, very, very difficult. So that hasn't changed at all. But I think, from the E&S side, it's, the market's going to get a little bit softer. I don't see 2023 as being a year that you would call soft. I would say it'd be, maybe not as hard as 22, but we still have wind at our back, and I think we're going to see that, and we'll see what happens in 24. There's a recession potentially on the horizon. Our industry historically has done pretty well during recessions, but what does that mean to exposure bases and so on and so forth, and businesses just trying to, stay afloat during a difficult economic time. So
we touched a little earlier on some of the retail consolidation that's happening in the marketplace, but I want to dig in a little bit deeper and just get your insights on how you think that's impacting our industry, and more specifically, what impact it's having on Jencap.
Well, it's funny, as I look at, again, the board behind you and know where I came from at NIF, and know, having been in diligence on all these different companies, everybody had the same concerns. They were reasonably sizable regional operations with amazing brands and amazing, reputations, both with carriers and with their clients. But they started to see over the past 10 years or 5 years that a lot of their clients were being bought up by aggregators, and staying relevant to those aggregators was much harder. Post that, becoming part of Jencap, we've made a concerted effort to make sure that we are relevant to those carriers. That, as we aggregate these buckets of premium, that we have a real big trade, very large trading relationships with most of them. And we've gotten in front of them and told them about the specialties, told them about the programs, the exclusive programs that we have that they would not be able to access in other places, and kind of made ourselves relevant to those brokers. So it's not easy to be an independent in kind of a smaller geography when you have a lot of your clients being eaten up by some of these aggregators. For us, because of our size and because of the rapid growth that we've had, we've been able to do that, and that was part of the goal from day one. Without that, I'm not sure we would have seen all the things, all the growth that we've seen would have been really kind of difficult, if not impossible, to achieve.
Well, and that obviously was speaking to more of the retail consolidation, but if you speak to just about any of the CEOs or presidents or owners of the companies that have sold to Jencap, same goes for wholesale consolidation, where they were constantly competing with the larger wholesalers in the insurance industry, and just couldn't get the same terms from the carriers, and they were getting left at the table, and it obviously benefited Jencap greatly. And here we are,
No,
fifth largest wholesaler.
You're absolutely right. It goes both ways, right? So the carriers, we get more recognition from the carriers. We've been able to aggregate. We become a decent client from, we were a decent client, and now we become a very large client, usually in the top 10 somewhere. Not every one of them, but a lot of the major carriers were in the top 10. So, so that helps. It helps to be able to create that leverage, deepen the relationships, and be able to show your clients that you have that kind of relationship with a carrier that you can get things done.
Well, I can't wait to sit down with you a year from now and be able to look back at this and see what considerable growth we've made at Jencap. Potentially some really exciting acquisitions, tease that might be coming, and just incredible things that we're going to be able to accomplish as a team, because we just have an unbelievable foundation built as an organization, and under your leadership, I can't wait to see where that goes.
Well, thank you. And listen, I agree. I'd love to sit down in a year and kind of talk about, where we are and all the things we've done and accomplished, because it's going to be more change and more things happening, and it's exciting, really exciting. It's only one request I have.
What's that?
We flip the cap to like free throws, or put a hoop in here or something. Can we do that?
Well, okay, so let's see how everybody else does, because Kanan is a pretty incredible fighter as well. So we might just have to put you two in the ring. I don't know. If you need a rematch, then let's meet you guys where you could really blow some steam off. If you're mad at each other, we could do it under the guise of a flip the cap rematch. Just you let me know. Unfortunately, our time is up today. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, everybody, Kathryn Smith. Flip the Cap is the podcast where insurance insights flow and trending topics are always on tap. Until next time, cheers.